I want to welcome everybody here tonight. This is really a neat group of people that have come together tonight to hear Donn's presentation. There's some things I'd like to go over, though, before I turn it over to Donn. We have a microphone tonight. I don't know if Donn will need to use it or not, but our AV equipment is compliments of Caring Community Foundation. So if you see somebody that is a member of that particular board of directors, be sure to thank them for providing this and other things in the community. I hope all of you have signed in. There is a sign-in book. If you haven't done that, please do that before you leave. The county commissioners look to see how many visitors we have to the museum every year, and they also look to see if we're representing more than just Onega in the area. So it's always nice to have those of you that are outside of Onega, be sure to put your town down so we can count that. And if you're out of state, that's even better, or out of country. There is a jar there. Our programs are free. If we were doing a Humanities Kansas program, we could not charge for that, so we elect to not charge for any of them. However, our expenses keep growing. Recently, we lost our insurance company. They chose not to insure nonprofits anymore, and so we had to go out on the market and find a different insurance policy, and it was not cheaper than our other one. So any kind of donations you can give for the general fund, we appreciate that. We are just coming off of Heritage Day on Saturday. Were any of you there on Saturday? Some of you were. Wouldn't it have been nice if today had been Saturday? Beautiful day, but we had a good day. Maybe not as many people as we had hoped, but I think everybody here really enjoyed their day. I hope you took time to notice our big concrete foundation out there. How many of you noticed that as you drove up? It's a 60 by 105. It was poured last week, and they are coming back, we hope sometime this week, to do some of the sidewalks and the ramps and those kinds of things for us. And then we're getting on the list to put up the building, the shell of the building, and we are at the mercy of the contractor when they have time to work us in. The concrete and the shell have been paid for, or we have the money to pay for that. Finishing the inside and around the building will come as the funds come in. So any kind of building funds you can help with us, we certainly appreciate that. And you can see a schematic of the building, the inside of the building at the back there when we get done. We do have some silent auction items over there. I hope you take some time to look at those. I'll be honest, they're left over from Saturday, so they're bargain prices. There are several Halloween decorations. I would really like to see those gone tonight. We also have quilt tickets for a K-State quilt and a KU quilt made by Ann Abbott's and tied by the Lutheran ladies that do the quilting. And we do have those available tonight after the program is over. We also have our books. After you listen to Donn, you may want to get some of our books. If you don't have the book, The History of Onega, and I would recommend that book. We have another book, Old Settlers' Tales. We only have 3 of those left. And after those are gone, I don't think we'll probably have any more of those purchased. And then there's Susie's cookbook, and there are 2 books on Bucks Grove for those of you that are from that area. And then the most important announcement of all is our bathroom stool is not working real well. So if you use the bathroom stool, there's a little sign there that says, use the stick to poke the flapper down. And if you get the flapper poked down, it won't run constantly. So you're sure welcome to use it. It's over in the Founders Hall in the back corner there. Just pay attention to the flapper.
It's a little better than the printing. It's a little better than the printing.
Yeah, you could use the privy, I suppose. We can open it if you want us to. There's corn cobs out there.
Red or white?
They're white. And I learned Saturday that we really need to get some red ones first.
And white.
And then white. If any of you, if you have not gone to the Onega Historical Society Facebook page, I encourage you to like that page. A lot of our programs that we do, like Deanna's going to film Donn tonight, and his program will be on Facebook. Saturday's programs were on Facebook, or are getting there. A little bit of technical difficulty, I think, on a long one, but there is a really delightful one by Robin Colderman about the history of the Privy. And you'll just have fun listening, watching it and listening to it. So I think that gives all the background that I need to give on things we have for sale and trying to get money from you. The important thing is that you be sure you sign in. And with that, we'll turn it over to Donn, Teske, and ghost towns in the area.
Thank you. You want me to try that thing?
It's entirely up to you.
Shall I use it or shall I not?
Yes.
Okay, damn it. I love doing these kind of things, and thank you for asking me again. I apologize for this one because this is the most sloppy one I've ever put together. I was sick all last week, and finally Friday, Lisa and I ran down to Topeka to the Historical Society, and I found a whole bunch of photos I wanted, but they didn't have anybody to copy them for me. So this morning they scanned them in and emailed them to me, and while I was at Barb Depew's meeting at the Department of Ag and should have been paying attention to the meeting, I was sticking those photos in the PowerPoint presentation I put together yesterday. So I haven't even had a chance to go through it and see if it's got any typos or if I got the right pictures with the right slides. So we'll kind of see how this goes. But whoever did the promo for me, thank you, you did a good job, because I hadn't done anything till yesterday. So anyhow, this is 1878 map, and I just really like it because, you know, it shows the railroad getting to Onega. Wheaton ain't there yet. I would have thought at that time that Blaine would have been Butler City, but it's Blaine on there. But then it shows where Vienna was, Neuchâtel, Recipe. I think Recipe's on there, isn't it? Yep, there it is, right above the Potawatomi. And so even getting up into Nemaha County, America City, and Ontario, so I'm going to cover both of them tonight too.
Is it Leghorn what became Wheaton's?
Yes, Leghorn became Wheaton. Yeah, anybody have any comments or want to challenge me or correct me, just holler. I like a two-way conversation. So I'll start through this and see where we end up. Post offices all came out of Kansas Post Offices. That's really an interesting book, and it's totally accessible at the Kansas Historical Society online. And so that's where I got all the dates of the post office. Oldest post offices in Kansas, in northeast Kansas, Fort Leavenworth, 1841. Marysville is the second oldest, 1854, and then Westmoreland, 1858, on the Oregon Trail. So I was up at the Pony Express Museum in Marysville, and they were telling me they had the oldest post office in Kansas, and I told them, no, Fort Leavenworth is the oldest, and they told me that I didn't know what I was talking about. So I double checked it before I put that on there. The oldest one around this area, America City. And so established in 1860, post office was closed in 32. I think probably most of the people in here know where America City is. It was, a lot of people lived there, and it was on the Overland stage line. You know, Marvin Cottrell said he had the auction for selling off the last of the town. I ran across this online for the Chapman Center. I know the Historical Society does some things with that. That's a great group. And so this gal had done this work on it and had the plat map for America City. So see if I can find my button here. The 63 highway would be right down here. That's the old church with the steeple taken off, the old schoolhouse. It's just all part of a farmstead there now. So then Circleville, that would be the next oldest. It was established in 1861. You know, the post office is still going. Circleville was a pro-slavery town, and Alton was just a log cabin until Kansas settled as a free state, and then Alton took over domination. Daniel Calderman died. That would be an ancestor to a lot of you here in the room over there, killed violently. Vienna. We all know where the Vienna Cemetery is, just south of town here. Post office established in '62. First postmaster was Jacob Mensch, closed in 1883. I've seen maps of a place in town east of the Rock Bridge, south of the cemetery. Everybody else tells me that's wrong, and it was right across the road from the cemetery. And they're probably right, and I'm probably wrong. I've seen maps both ways. Somebody told me they went to school down there one year, didn't you?
I went 5 years.
5 years?
Yep.
To the Vienna School?
Yep.
And where was it located?
West of Bossy's house, up by the lane there.
Okay, I did enter it in here right then.
I went there 2 years.
Oh, yeah?
I went there, I rode
Okay.
a horse there.
Well, that would probably say the town was right there around there then, yeah.
Margie taught there, didn't she, one year? Yeah, I think our sister Margie taught there one year.
Oh, really?
And my mother did too, before she was married.
Okay. I agree with the crowd. Okay, now where the next oldest around is Ontario, and that would be northeast of Soldier up there. Established in 1862, closed in 1922. And there's their depot. And I like that picture. Nutsman's store must have been something impressive, or somebody donated a lot of that stuff to the State Historical Society, because that name popped up quite a bit. I like the one horse. He's like, what are you doing, Greg? And then Neuchâtel. Established in '64, closed in 1901, Swiss settlement on the Overland Stage Route. The rock house there, the Reisingers live in, was built by Ephraim Bonger as a store for trading with the parallel road travelers. So I think I've told you all before about the story about Jesse James and that house, but I've got a couple blank looks. Okay, I wrote a story once for the paper, and it talked about this picture about Jesse and Frank James, and anyhow, afterwards, Kathy caught me one day at the post office, and she goes, Don, I gotta tell you a story. She says, I came home from work one day, and there was a car driving by our house real slow, and then they turned around at the corner and then drove back real slow, and they had New York tags, and so I went out and asked them, you know, if I could help them, and the woman was traveling cross country with 2 of her grandchildren, and she wanted to show her family history. And she said her grandfather was Ephraim Bonger, and she still remembered as a kid him bouncing her on his knee and telling old stories of the old trading days, and said whenever Jesse and Frank James would be traveling through, they would camp there on French Creek, and then Frank would come up at night and rock with him on the porch and smoke pipes and tell stories. And so that was one of the stories she shared. And so Savannah, between Onaga and Havensville, never had people there. Had a post office for a few years, and that would have been on the railroad.
It had a schoolhouse. The sign's still there. It was on our property.
They had a schoolhouse?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yeah. It was on our, what we own now.
okay,
The post office was actually on the south side of the road in T.I. Eddie's house.
okay. Then Leghorn Wheaton. Post office established in 1870. That was officially closed in 1883 after when they did the name change to Wheaton. Closed in 1992. Joy was the last postmistress. That's the Wheaton Depot, obviously. And that back behind there, you can see the red brick house that Art Swan and Dorothy lived in, so that'll give you a perspective of where the depot's at, just west of where the scale is there on the street. Hardware store, Main Street, you can see Art and Dorothy's house down on the end again. The story is that that house was built from plans from New York by one of the engineers on the railroad being built through there. It wasn't me. And that, not a choo-choo engineer, a drawing engineer. And of course, the Kufal Hardware's ancestors. So that was a Wheaton Bank, and then the post office. And I actually got a checkbook at home in our museum of blank Wheaton checks. So I was gonna bring it tonight, but I was too lazy to stop and pick it up. And that would be looking to the north. You can see the Catholic Church on the very end that used to be up there. And the park would be to the right. That was a 1914 fire. Then we got Bucks Grove come into the sequence, so 1870 to 1881. You got anything to add, Bob?
Located on the west of the bridge there, west of the church. It was just west of the church on the south side of the road.
On the south side of the road?
Yep.
Huh, okay. Is there any foundations there yet or anything?
There's a few rocks around.
The recipe, established in 1871, closed in 1903. That'd be down in Loring Frederick's area. You got anything, do you know where it was, Loring?
Not exactly.
I think it was just across the road to the north from where Kelly's place is.
That's what I thought,
In St. Clair, 1874. Home of world heavyweight boxing champion Jess Willard. We talked about him the last time. That's the city plat map. About all I remember of St. Clair's, there used to be a beer joint down there. It wasn't a good place to get drunk because those Indians off the reservation was, yeah. Then Grange. So, post office established in 1875, closed in 1880. I think it would have been there earlier than that, just didn't have a post office. It's northwest of Duluth. A lot of the maps have it, you know, a half mile north of the Lloyd Martin farm. Ain't no water there. I think that's questionable. I always thought, and some of the maps I've seen has it where Leo Wander's farmstead is. And to me, that makes a lot more sense. But the overland stage route actually dipped down from Neuchatel and came up the Dutch Creek River Valley to pick up the stage stop at Grange before it went back up north to the parallel road. In Moodyville, established in 1879, first postmaster was Edwin M. Moody, surprise, surprise. Closed in 1927. It was at the bottom below a cemetery, serviced by the Westmoreland Interurban Railroad. 3-story hotel by the Healing Springs. Grandma would go down there to party. You used to farm that bottom, Maureen, didn't you?
Yeah.
Have you ever run into anything like that?
No?
That's a plat map for it. So the Interurban Railroad and road are right here, and the creek and the hill there with the cave and stuff. And I think the hotel was right there. And maybe,
What creek is that?
huh?
What creek is it?
Rock Creek?
That's Rock Creek, okay.
So where would the cemetery be?
It's up around the curve and kind of up that way, up out of the floodplain. A lot of rock there. It's not a good place to be digging grave. Anyhow, one thing I wanted to point out here that I thought was really cute was the Kansas Southern Railroad is what that was called. And so that was the Kansas Southern Railroad. And so that bad storm that took out the bridge with that on the bridge and half of those guys in the picture, was that 1917 or 1914? It's the same one that killed all the Burgess family out here south of town.
1950.
Well, I was close. I was on both sides of it. Okay, anyhow, that was a storm that took out the railroad, and that would have been just south of Moodyville, or across Rock Creek down there.
White's automobile for an engine.
You say what?
White's automobile.
Is it?
Yeah.
Cool. I learned something tonight.
Hey, Donn,
Yeah?
back to St. Clair, the church that's on the south side of grade school up here, I think it was moved up here from St. Clair.
Right.
Really?
It was set right south of the barn.
Did it? Well, that's cool.
I don't know when it was moved up here, but I've always heard that.
So the Baptist church here, over on the other side of the Catholic church you're talking about?
Yeah,
Huh.
it's across the street from grade school.
Well, that's neat. It's amazing how they moved the buildings around back then.
They might have tore it down and then put it back together, because that's how they moved the mill, Dutch mill, to
Oh.
Omega. They
Don.
tore it all apart and then put it back together.
Yeah?
Down back to Savannah, it was 4 blocks wide and 8 blocks long. The school was at the very north end of it, where the sign, the Historical Society here put up the sign there. We have a plat map of it and owners of different plots there in it. But the school closed in 1922, and when they put that sign up, I said to Gary, this is just my guess, but because when the town was that big, and Gary said for years, they plowed up pieces of dishes and all kinds of stuff on that. But I would bet the 1819 flu is what wiped that town and Pleasant Valley or Sutherland off, because the cemetery is full of graves, just like Pleasant Valley is.
I see.
Lots of unmarked ones, because families, whole families died at one time.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't do enough research on a lot of these towns, and I did too much on others, and I'm just talking about what went through my mind as I threw this thing together, so that's part of my inefficiency here. Blaine, Butler City. So, Bill Burke always claimed that when his neighbor, Colonel Robbins, who was a Civil War veteran, heard that the Catholic Church was going to establish Butler City, that he quick went and put up a shack with a bar in it, so it was there waiting when they got there. And Colonel Robbins and then his father, so they were both Civil War veterans. In Bancroft, that's kind of out of my normal history, but I ended up putting it in here.
They still have a reunion type thing in that
Yeah.
town every year.
Still an active community, I got it right down here, yeah. Northeast of Soldier, in fact, Bancroft and Ontario are only like 4 miles apart over there. They're real close together. And we're both on the railroad, so that's your plat map. And the Depot Museum, and it was part of the Wyandotte Northwestern Rail Line, which I had never even flitted through my mind before I started putting this together. I didn't know there was a Northwest Southeast Railroad that went through there. So Gulf had 2 railroads, lines come through it. And so that's all that's left of it. It was the depot and those 2 buildings. I remember the school standing. It's gone now, and they put that up over by the depot, which was up on the top of this. Anybody went to school there? I had it in my head that Herb Baxter went there. I know he graduated high school at Kelly, but for some reason I thought he went to Bancroft too.
They had a dance hall in there. I forget, it would have been in the late 70s.
Yeah?
I've been there that time, but not school.
Yeah? Did you have something to do with the condition of the gym afterwards?
More than likely, when I fell off my horse too.
They had a newspaper. That's one of the things I want to do is go through all these ghost towns and see how many of them actually had newspapers being published. And I suspect I could find quite a few. I could add to this later on. Duluth, now we're getting into my stomping grounds. Post office established in 1912. First postmaster, Bertha Colderman. But church was established in 1875. And, you know, that's what I stress about Duluth is it wasn't a railroad town. The railroad didn't come through there until 1905. My understanding and what was told to me was that William F. Colderman would bring people over from Germany if they worked for him for so many years, and they all lived over the hill and walked over the hill to go to work. So in the valley to the north there was the William F. Colderman residence, which again is Debbie's husband's ancestors. But that road wasn't a public road, that was a private road that cut through the section and came out right at Duluth. And when Dad and Marvin bought that farm in 1955, the barn had stalls in it for 40 horses. I mean, they were farming 4,000 acres in the 1800s. So, William F. Colderman donated the land for the church, blah, blah, blah.
A different William F., not this one. Gary's great-grandfather that homesteaded where Chad Abbott's lives now. And Jan Tadlock has all of that. It's here in the museum.
It's real easy to mix up the William F. Coldermans.
Yeah, well, William F. Colderman donated the land for the present church. The other Williamette donated the land for where the original church was, which was right across the road he donated the land for the church
Okay.
and the cemetery.
So we were both right.
There were 5 WFs. Easy to confuse.
Anyhow, I took this weird photo because it shows the church in the background and the parsonage and then the school. And so,
There was a stone church right across the drive there from where the church is now. And they used it for a short time for a church and then turned it into a school and built the present church in 1875.
okay. So the first church was built in 1875 and the second church?
No, 67, but don't.
I mean, the cemetery wasn't started till 75.
Right. But the original church was right, there's a hump there yet that you can tell where that stone church was. I have pictures of it and people been in the school later.
I'm not arguing with you. I know the hump you're talking about. I'm just trying to get a perspective of the sequence of things.
Yeah. But there, well, like I said, there were 5 WF Coleman's.
So you know everything else about that spot? You know about, have you ever seen the ghost or anything? Or?
No.
Everybody says it's haunted. I don't know. When I was a kid, that's where we did once looking in that window.
Saw the garage when the tornado picked it up and put it on the north side of March Street.
It was the Duluth Depot. So, like Friday, I couldn't find anything at the Historical Society. And I really wanted pictures of Clarence and Ethelene in their store. That was, I spent so much time in there, and Clarence's granddaughter sent me this late yesterday, and I brought 4 copies, if anybody wants to kind of read them or pass them out or anything, but it's interesting reading. I've seen that picture on the right side that somebody walking in front of there. I was told by Grandma that was Herman Teske walking there in that photo, which would be Clarence's dad, my great-grandfather. I can't say prove anything, but that's Duluth in 1920, and then this is the story. And you can, this is about the best view of from what she sent me of the storefront. I carried a lot of tires in through those doors and helped carry a lot of feed out. And you buy your rubber boots there. I'd buy my Wolverine work boots, shoes there. And we'd borrow Uncle Clarence's meat grinder when we butchered every year between Christmas and New Year. So we could use his electric grinder. And you could buy groceries in there and get your mail. And it was everything.
Feed and everything.
Yeah.
They even had coffins in the upstairs and the feed side.
Really?
This is just the north.
Leroy and I used to play up there. Amongst the coffins. Just the coffins.
So was there like an attic with a floor, or are you talking about up in the
Well, it
rafters?
wasn't an attic, it was just like a loft kind of thing.
Okay.
There were steps going up and it was kind of spooky.
Okay, cool.
Better.
Yeah. So anyhow, where that garage is sitting is where the store was. And then this house is where Clarence and Ethelene lived when they had the store. But before Clarence, this house was great-grandfather Herman Teske's place of business. It was a restaurant, it was a bar, and it's where he did his livestock trading business out of. He shipped livestock out of Duluth to Kansas City for people, and so that was all done out of that house. And then after that quit happening, Clarence ended up moving in there. I haven't done enough Providence to know who built the store. I don't know that. I mean, Clarence would have only been 7 years old when the store was built, so.
Ernest, Gary, one of the Burgesses and one of the Holtermans originally ran the Duluth store. I can't tell you what year. The south side where they sold feed, they were in cloth sacks, and I have a lot of those left today, and most of my clothes were made out of them back in school days, early school days.
Yep. So that's the old Grange Hall in Duluth. And then later on, it was Uncle Lester Teske's shop. I mean, he kind of was a town mechanic. He was telling me once, he said gas kept leaving his barrel there. He lived in a house right back behind the store. He said gas kept leaving his barrel, and so finally when they were both empty once, he had the delivery truck put diesel in the gas and then gas in the diesel. And said later, a couple weeks later, a guy there in town pulled his car up that was smoking like crazy. He wanted to know if he could fix it for him. Oops, I missed one there. Okay, now I'm going to start roaming away from home a little bit. Ghost Towns of Kansas, wonderful series of books. Daniel Fitzgerald was kind of my hero. I bought every one of his books, and after I started traveling the road on my job, I had all of them in the back seat, so I'd have 5 or 6 books, and wherever I was driving, I could hit the indexes and see. And he wrote his first book when he was 17, and I got in here, he kind of peaked early. We even brought him into Young Farmers one night, and that was one of the speakers that Bart brought in, and he was great. He had graduated from college and was with the State Historical Society. And I kind of worshiped him. It's like, I'm not going to miss that meeting. He probably got tired of me being a groupie around him that night, but he done a marvelous job of putting those books together and piquing everybody's interest in the areas. And when I say he peaked early, I kind of kept tracking him after that. He didn't last too long at the Historical Society, and then he ended up, I think, running the Atchison County Museum up there. He was either Atchison or St. Joe, but anyhow, then he ended up in prison selling artifacts out of the back door of the museum. And so that's why I say he peaked early. But that doesn't downplay what he did when he was younger. Man, that was a lot of research went into that. One of them in his book, but even as on the Donn history tour, is Irving. It's southeast of Blue Rapids, established in 1860. Closed in 1960 when Tunnel Creek was built. It was one of the 10 communities that got taken out by Tunnel Creek. Town site's never been underwater. So, but they also had the 1879 tornado through there that it killed 30 people that day, but it was 2 different tornadoes. One tornado came through town and killed like 15, 20 people, and I just no more started coming out of their shelter and collecting the injured, and a tornado come into town from the other side of town and killed another 15 or 20. And it's like the only one of 2 towns in the United States has ever been hit by 2 tornadoes in the same day. And anyhow, one of them that was killed was Dorothy Gale. And L. Frank Baum, that wrote The Wizard of Oz, was a traveling salesman, and Irving was on his route. And so most people speculate the whole Wizard of Oz tornado is Irving, Kansas. What a claim to fame. But anyhow, that was Irving in the 1940s. And that, I just ran across that Historical Society and thought that was a fascinating picture. You don't see many pictures of the ferries that across the Blue River back then. And so there we have the ferry. Looks like there was a bridge at one time, but there's a ferry there. Irving Depot. So this is Blue Rapids, and Tunnel Creek is obviously backed up about as much as it could be backed up, so it must have been there a couple years ago when this, I got this off of Google Earth, but the map must be from a couple years ago when it was about clear full, because Tunnel Creek is clear around Blue Rapids and going up that way. And so you come down here and this is the town side of Irving. So, but it's so surreal because when you drive down there, I'll take the senior kids down there. Yeah, you drove us around there, right? And it's just, it's almost spooky because these are all drivable roads, but you can see the old streets. They're still there. The sidewalks are still there. Building foundations, basements are still there. And it's all overgrown. It's just amazing how fast nature takes back over what's left alone, you know? And so it's just surreal to drive down in there and drive through those streets. Bigelow was right across the river to the east. It was also eliminated by Tunnel Creek. I know some of the people that got relocated came over this way and settled back down again. Bigelow School. I thought that Caddy Walter's picture was kind of neat, showing the students and stuff in there. So now we're going farther away. Minersville would be one of his books and one of his ghost towns in his ghost town of Kansas. And it was southeast of Belleville, the northeast of Concordia, so old State Highway 81 goes right by it. But that was just a coal mining town. And it was shaft mines, which is kind of surreal around here. But off of Google Earth, I didn't have time to run over and take pictures. You could see all these different, that ain't where they were feeding cows, those are tailing piles from the shaft mines. And so if you drive back in there, you can see where the lines were because you can see all the tailings. And they said that, you know, during the day there wouldn't be a soul in town, and come evening everybody would pop up out of the ground and they're all working underground. But there'd be 100 wagons a day there waiting to load up and ship out. And so, right here, that's old Highway 81. It comes out down by the World War II prison war camp there northeast of Concordia.
Donn, we still take 4-H kids out there to pick up lignite samples.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna fool you with nothing when my talk's in, my guy. So I couldn't get a ground view of it, but this, like I just expanded one of the tailing piles as much as I could and clicked it on, but you could kind of see the erosion around it and stuff. And a lot of those trees are basically hiding tailing piles. I mean, trees have grown up over them, so a lot of those trees you'd see were, there were more tailing piles than what showed up in the air. Excuse me. So this is Sheridan, and Sheridan was surreal. I mean, it was only there for 15 months. The railroad was built across Kansas, went through Omega, Manhattan, blah, 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 Fort Riley, Fort Hayes, It gets out as far as the North Fork of the Ark up there, west of Oakley, and they ran out of money. And so for 15 months, that was the end of the rail line. And so all the goods were shipped to the end of the rail line to warehouses and then hauled out by oxen trains to Santa Fe and all the forts and on west. And Harper's Weekly titled it the wickedest town in the West. And in 15 months, there were 31 people hung from the trestle and over 100 shot. And you know, I've read reports of kids that were growing up in there and later on became judges, and they talked about every morning they'd go out to the trestle to see who got hung overnight, you know. So anyhow, you know, I was driving around, had the books with me. I'm fascinated by that Sheridan, Wallace area right in there. And so I thought I could find where that town was. And the railroad had been straightened more and wasn't where the old rail line was. The old rail line right there where Sheridan would be was maybe a half mile north of where the current rail line is. So I drove probably over a mile back in some guy's pasture before I got to that spot. So my car had to do a lot of weird things when I was driving on the job. But I found the spot. You could tell where the old rail line had been and where the trestle was, and I knew exactly where the depot would have been and where the graveyard would have been. Nothing there. Nothing but a few rusty tin cans and a couple of depressions. I mean, it's just a pasture out there. And so, did they relocate the cemetery? I have no idea. But over 100 people were buried in it in 15 months. And this is out of Harper's Weekly, and it lied. See those bloods? That's the next year in 1870. I mean, as soon as that town was gone, it was gone. And that was buffalo hunters in a dugout in the Sheridan town site in 1870, the next year. Now Oil Hill. It probably doesn't qualify, but I just think it's so fascinating. So established in 1917, the post office closed in 58. It was a company town. That's a aerial view. Over 300 homes, businesses, company town. Oklahoma City lured the company away. And virtually overnight, it was a ghost town. And that just, to me, there's nothing left, I think. But I can find out. It would be right on the outskirts of El Dorado. But how do you take 8,500 people and I guess when you're a company, you do what you want. And that's all I put together so far. I don't know if I talked too long or not long enough, and I know I missed a lot of stuff. And
Well, I'm curious, Donn, I seen on one of them pictures, I can't remember which one it was, there was the George McManus.
yeah,
That was the founder or whatever.
postmaster.
Do you have any idea if that guy would have been a brother or something to the Doc McManus that was kind of over in my neck of the woods over in Buck Grove?
Trying to think what town that was. I think that was American City, wasn't it?
No, Risky.
No, it was, George.
Risky, wasn't it?
There he
Here
is.
it is, recipe. Yeah. I don't know anything about the people except writing down their name is all.
Hey, on that trestle we went to, is that the one that hung in men up?
I'm sorry?
The trestle that we walked back into,
No,
that's not the one.
this was clear out of western Kansas,
Okay.
west of Oakley, about 20 miles. So, yeah. So, well, it's just some of the things that run south of my travels and what interests me, so.
They talk about round top.
What's your name? Yes, we're on the radio. You're fine.
I've heard about that too.
But nobody ever seems to know
Hey,
it.
where Risky School was. What did you call it?
Round top.
Round top?
It was supposedly, if I, well, I don't know why, is where they were going to, put water on the trains. Off. Northeast of town there or someplace.
I don't know. I do have a story that fluttered through my mind as you were saying that. Don Rollison, when he used to come out, an archaeologist with the State Historical Society, was telling me once that over by Havensville, that there is such a large man-made Indian mound over there, that there's actually a farmstead on top of it, and nobody knows about it. And he wouldn't tell me where it was, because he doesn't want potholders digging in it. And so every time I drive around over by Havensville, I can wonder. So you said Round Top, and that just clicked in my mind, that story.
Any other comments or questions that people would like to share? You know, Don was talking about Duluth. How many of you do have Duluth memories? My grandpa and grandma Honey lived in Duluth, so we spent some time over there too. I want to thank you, Don. Let's give him a big round of applause. This has been kind of a long time in coming. It started last year, I don't know, maybe October, when Adam Kufal brought his class down to the museum to see what we had available on 5 different ghost towns in Kansas. And the kids did their projects and created PowerPoints. And we had it set up for them to come and show them one evening. Well, then we had a snowstorm. And then we had basketball, state basketball tournament, and then we had track, and it just never occurred. And if you've been in the school system, if after so long, if something doesn't happen, it really loses its impact and the enthusiasm of people wanting to do that. But there still was a lot of interest in the ghost town topic, and Don stepped up and did put this together for us special tonight. So another round of applause for Don. They researched, oh gosh, I hope I can remember this, Duluth, Deanna, Savannah, what's that little town out there that has that cemetery that was washed away by your place?
I'll tell you in a minute.
Okay.
Pleasant Valley now.
Pleasant Valley, it was Pleasant.
Sutherland was the original, but it was a stone house, or building anyway, is where the school was. But Pleasant Valley, Sutherland Cemetery was organized there, but it never got recorded with the county. But the school burnt, and they assumed that the plat for it burnt with it, because back then they didn't go to Westmoreland to record things everywhere. So, but the 4-H club back in, what years, cleaned that all up. It was like a forest that its graveyard was.
Victory 4-H did that? Okay.
And they still maintained it for many years, but they set up all the tombstones in there and everything, and kids went out there and partied and knocked them all down and everything, and the flood came along and washed them away, so there's very little record on it.
So that was one of the little towns they researched. Did I give you 4? You know, after your hair gets so white, it's hard to remember everything. But it was a delightful time with the students coming down and using our facility to do that kind of research. We do have a couple of books over there on the ghost towns of Kansas. If anyone's interested, I'll try to find them in there. I did Google extinct towns in Potawatomi. There are a million lists out there and a million opinions as to what is a ghost town and what is not a ghost town. And this list actually had 33 listed here in Potawatomi County at one time or another. But you go through there, I don't consider Duluth a ghost town. Do any of you? I don't consider Wheaton a ghost town. I don't consider Blaine a ghost town. So you have to kind of look and see what their parameters are on how they're listing. Now, I do consider Bellegarde a ghost. Broderick, Float, how many of you have heard of Float, Potawatomi? Grange, I have heard of Grange, and you know, that's odd listening to you, Donn. We have a picture of the Grange. Well, that was a society. Now I wonder if that Grange, it was called Grange, Jan Papandrea found us the picture. It was actually of the little town of Grange. You know,
Duluth had a Grange Hall. I mean, that was a farm organization. It's still active in California.
Well, the Grange Hall was where, you're talking about the whatever avenue.
There was a Grange Hall out here right north of town where
Pleasant Valley.
Dwayne Kufall used to own it.
see, those of you that know things like that, you need to write them down for us and bring it to the museum, because that's how we expand the knowledge. There is so much history that is not recorded, and people like all of you that remember some of those snippets, if you'd write them down and bring them to us, eventually we can compile more information on what it was like around here. Some museums you go to and I'm just amazed at how they timelined everything. And we're kind of lacking a timeline here that we would like to try to build.
Do they say Neuchâtel is a ghost town?
That's a name.
Well, that's in Nemaha.
Well, I know it's in Nemaha, but you did mention it, so I was just wondering.
Well, when the kids did their research, did I say Neuchâtel? No. I think Neuchâtel was the other one now that you say that.
Yes, it was.
It was, yeah, Neuchâtel.
We closed maybe the businesses, but I remember when people lived there, and that what they call the hall that's there, that was actually moved there. And I know of 2 people that didn't know each other that's told the same story. And it was the Coulterman School, which was just west of Scott Bronco's driveway on the north side. Part of the foundation is still there.
Yeah, it is. I know where you're,
Yeah, Charlie told us, told Gary how they went down, Gary said, well, how'd they get it there? And he told him, down by that sawmill down there, and they was able to cross the creek and stuff. But if you look at it, it's got the entryway like a schoolhouse would have, and it's got the stage in the back, but everybody said that was the original Coulterman School, and it was District 15, and when they moved that to Neuchâtel, that's when they built District 15, where Babcocks live there in Duluth now. That became District 15.
Debbie, if you look at that map, though, it shows Neuchâtel in Potawatomi County.
It's right on there.
right there.
It's just.
It's on the parallel.
No, the dot's above it.
It's on above it.
Boy, is that tricky.
It's probably the parallel bus,
Circles right at the end of the green.
Sometimes I feel like Neuchâtel is here, though. We have a lot of artifacts that have a tie to Neuchâtel. And when we build, well, we're building, we do hope to focus a little bit, an area somewhere, you know, after we build, most of that room in there will be moved into our new building because it needs to be in climate control. Our military has to get into climate control, our sewing machines, our quilts, our pictures. Well, when we move all that, then we can space out some of the rest of this, and we would like to somewhere be able to focus a little bit on Wheaton, because they do not have a museum, a little bit on Duluth, and we've already started boxes of stuff that says Wheaton and Duluth. And some have wondered about Neuchâtel. The only thing it isn't in Potawatomi, but there are a lot of Neuchâtel ties to Onega. So a little bit will depend on our space and how all of you that are volunteers that are going to come the day we're going to move can help us decide where to put things. Well, we don't have a day yet. We have to get the building up, and we're at the mercy of the contractor a little bit on that. And then we'll finish as we have money. I do want to thank Donn again. He's had a busy schedule with a lot of things happening, and we appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge with everyone. Another round of applause.
It's fun.
I think Donn enjoys it, don't you?
Yes.
What do you want him to study for the next one? Somebody throw a topic out and we'll not pick October. We've crammed as much as we can possibly cram in October. Next Saturday at 1:30 we do have a speaker coming from Humanities Kansas. It's Jim Hoy, and it's Kansas Legends and Folk Tales. And I think you will really enjoy him. The neat thing is we're set up. And if you see Linda Rodenkamp back in the door, give her a big pat on the back because she really moves things in a hurry. If you want to set something up, she will move it for you. And she did a lot of moving and everything for us today. Ruth Caston's going to go back there and have tickets, and if you're interested in silent auction stuff, please consider doing that. If you have not signed in, the book is back there by Deb Manuel, and also a donation jar. The museum is open for anybody that wants to spend some time going through it yet. I did close the schoolhouse and the caboose. There's no electricity in those two buildings, and it is dark. And we have refreshments in the back of the room, cookies, compliments of Debbie Manuel and Barb Abbott's. And there's some water back there also, and you can see the plans for our building, our dream building. And I think with that,
Hey, Debbie?
I just wanted to say something to Donn. He didn't say nothing about it, and it's pretty interesting. Major Jenkins Road that we all travel on, a lot of people. Donn could tell us some good stories on Major Jenkins.
Major Jenkins, March 12th.
That's a lot of time.
So,
Is that not enough time? April 12th.
Hoy, that's going to be here Saturday, he's pretty interesting. I don't know how many of you have heard him before, but he's pretty good. And him and his son have a ranch southwest of Emporia, and it's kind of a dude ranch. You can do events there and stuff, and then he'll come and tell the cowboy stories. And they actually have a chuck wagon there that came up the Chisholm Trail, and they found in Nebraska somewhere. It's pretty cool.
He is sponsored to us by Humanities Kansas. Our historical society is a member of Humanities Kansas, and as such, we have a lot of speakers that can come a lot of benefits for Humanities Kansas. So I'm glad you gave a plug for Jim Hoy. I've heard him speak too, and I think you will really enjoy that for the afternoon. That's at 1:30 here. We're all set up here at the museum. So with that, thank you once again, everyone, for coming. It was just a wonderful group. We enjoy hosting things here at the museum for the community. Have a good evening.